Hi everyone, this is a short video to show you the steps to deploy a function, a DataFlow function in Azure. I won't be focusing on the design of the flow itself and what DataFlow function is about and so on. You can check out my other YouTube videos on this topic. Here it's really just going through the steps of deploying a function on Azure so that you have something up and running quickly. So the first step maybe is to go on docs.cloudera.com, and then you can go into DataFlow and then DataFlow functions, and you can go in the section dedicated to Azure, and you can follow the steps in order to deploy a function in Azure. I will do the steps in this video. There are many options depending on what are your requirements in terms of networking, security, and so on, but I will follow the, let's say, easiest path in terms of deploying the function so that you can get started quickly on your side as well. So first thing is to get the binary that you will deploy with your function. So you can access CDP public cloud, then you go in the DataFlow service, and then you have functions on the left here, and you can download the binary for Azure Functions. I already did it, but this is basically downloading a zip file for you. That's all you need to do here. Then in the DataFlow catalog, you need to have your flow available, the flow that you are going to execute as a function. So in my case, I'm going to deploy this flow, resize image. So the function is really just the function that I will be deploying is really an HTTP endpoint to which I can send an image with some HTTP parameters through headers, and this will send me back the resized image. So I'm using this flow here, and this is the ID of the flow. Be sure to select the CRN with the version number of the flow, not this one, which is the CRN for the flow, but we need the CRN for the versioned flow, which has the version at the end. So that's something you will need. And also you need some machine user that will be used by your function to authenticate against CDP public cloud. So if you go in the management console and then in user management, here you can create a machine user that will be used by your function, and I created one already. So that's the one I will be using, DFF demo here, and you just need to make sure that you give the DFF function machine user role to your user, and you create access keys for your user. That is required so that the user can authenticate against the CDP public cloud platform and download the flow definition that will be executed within your function. So that's really the only thing you need here on the Cloudera side. I can get that down, and then I can directly switch over to Azure. So it's really straightforward. You go in function app and you create a new function app. So this will be using my subscription. I'm saying to create a new resource group for me so I can directly provide a name. So I will say demo DFF Azure. So that's the name of my function app. I will be using code. I'm using Java. I'm using Java 11. 17 is not yet available. And then we will be deploying this in France for me. I keep Windows as the operating system. It's making things easier, but you can choose Linux as well, depending on your requirements. In the documentation, we are explaining what are the differences and how to use Linux. But in our case, we just keep the defaults. Same here, we go with consumption for serverless, and then we go to storage. It's going to create a storage account. That's perfectly fine. That's what I want. Networking, I keep everything defaults. I enable public access. Maybe that's something you would want to switch off in case you want to have some specific networking settings on your side. Then monitoring, I will keep the defaults as well. I will enable application insights. And then deployment, I keep all of the defaults, but you can change things if you want. Then tags, I'm not adding any tags, so I can go ahead, review, and create. This is going to create my function app with a lot of things associated to it. I will wait a bit so that all of the associated resources are provisioned. And once it's done, I will go directly to the storage account. So I'm just waiting a bit so that everything is provisioned. It's just taking a few seconds, and that's it. So everything is provisioned for me. I will go here in my storage account. Then I will go in file shares. There is a file share already, so I go into this one. I go into browse here. It's saying that I don't have the permission using Azure ID. This is something specific to Azure. I will switch to access key here, and I have access to the directories now. So the first step here is to add a directory data. So I'm adding this. And in that directory, so you can just in the docs, that's something we describe here. So here we say, go into the data directory, create it if it does not exist. And then we want another directory named site packages. So here I create another directory, site packages, and inside this one, I'm going to upload two files. One is package name, and the other one is the zip file here. So I'm going to do that and upload. So it's going to add two files here, and just to show you the give me a second here. I will bring a console here. So if I show what's in this file, it's really just the name of the zip file, so package name. So as you can see, this is the txt file is just the name of the zip file. That's something that is required by Azure to know that the code that we want to load in is inside this zip file, and that's all. So that's what we are uploading here. It's taking some time for the upload to complete, so we are going to wait a bit more. And once done, then we can go straight to the configuration of the function. So that's done. So I can close this and go back home, go into my function app and go into its configuration. So here we are going to add a few application settings. So the first one we want to add, as described in the docs. So, so you can see that next you can go to general configuration here. So the first thing we want to add is this one, website run from package, and we want to say 1. The value 1. So that's what we are doing here. So we do that. And something we want to add as well is the function name. We want to specify the function name. So we are going to add another application setting here. And for the name, I'm going just to add the same as my function app. this is what I want to use. You could use something else if you want, but I'm just using the same here. I will add additional settings, but just let's save this, continue. This is going to restart the function app, and actually by adding the website run from package, this is actually going to load everything from the zip file and put everything in place. And actually at this point, if you go into functions, you should see here the functions being added here. So we probably need to wait a bit here because this is probably still loading from the zip file. But once everything is in place here, you should see actually 3 functions here. So actually, I was not patient enough, but that's now available here. Yeah, so now everything is loaded, and we have 3 functions exposed by what we loaded in the zip file. There is HTTP text trigger, HTTP binary trigger, and there is event grid. In our side, we are going to use only HTTP binary, so you could delete the 2 others if you want, the 2 other ones. But in my case, I will keep everything because I don't really care. But in case you care and you know that your function is only going to use 1 function specifically, you can remove the other ones, disable the other ones. So in my case, I will be using HTTP binary because I will be sending an image over HTTP to my function. So that's the one I will be using here. If we look into here, we have some information about the execution, things like that. But that's something I will get back to in a minute. So let me go back to my function and I go into the configuration, and I'm going to add a few application settings. So the first thing that I'm going to add is the Flow CRM. So new application setting, Flow CRM. Let me copy paste this here. So I add this. Then I add my access key. So access key here. So my access key is this. I will add now my private key, and I will pause the recording for 1 second so that you don't see the value here. So give me a second, and I will add the value associated to this. So I added my private key here, and specifically for my flow, the flow that I'm using here right now, I will be adding a couple of other settings, but that's very specific to my flow. So that's actually not something you would require. I'm overriding the Nexus URL to use a public Maven repository, but in your case, the default should be fine. So that's really something specific to the flow I'm using right now. And I'm also specifying the output port as success, so that we know the function knows that the flow files sent back to the success output port is what should be sent back to the HTTP client. And that's it. That's all I need. So I will save, continue. This is updating everything. And that's it. So now I can go ahead and execute my function. So to do that, I mean, obviously you could go into all of the other configuration settings and change things if you want. You could set up some authentication on the HTTP endpoint. There are many things you can do, but in my case, that's all I want. So I will go directly to the log stream. where I can see the logs of my function when being executed. So I will just go here. I will just do something like this, and I will execute my function. So actually, I mean, you can look into the docs, but basically here I'm doing a curl x post HTTPS. And here it's the name of the function. So it's going to be demo DFF Azure. And then it's this endpoint here. And I'm going to add a bunch of things. So here I will say something like this here. So I'm adding the content type. In this case, it's application octet stream because it's the binary one, so it's important. I'm providing some parameters in terms of what should be the size of the resized image. This is something that my flow definition is expecting. And then I'm providing the data binary, so the image I want to send, and how I should save the output, so my resized image. And that's what I'm going to send here. Here, this is going to be a cold start. So this is the first time we run the function, so it's actually going to take quite some time. We are loading a lot of things. So the basic nulls that are packaged with the zip file that are making the, let's say, the binary working. Then we are loading the flow. So we downloaded the flow definition from the control plane. We can see it here. We are analyzing what's inside this flow. We see that we have some nulls to download to make this flow working. So that's what we are downloading here. And we are loading the nulls, and then we will be loading the flow. This is what is taking a lot of time when you are running the function for the first time. So this is a cold start. All of this is happening just during the first execution of the function. This is not something we will be doing during the next executions. So the nulls are being downloaded and loaded depending on your internet access. This can take some time, but here everything is loading. We loaded the function, and we can see here that we are receiving the image, resizing the image, and sending the result. So as you can see here, the invocation is successful, and it took some time to get the resized image back, but it was working. Now, if I execute the same again, you can see that it sent the results below 1 second, and the logs are showing super quickly after a few seconds. And we can see the binary data of the image. Actually, all of this could be removed. This is in my flow definition. I decided to log all of the information about the flow file, including the data that I'm receiving. But obviously, all of this could be removed so that your function is actually even faster. Here we can see all of the information received, and we can see here the HTTP headers that we received as part of our request, and those are received as flow file attributes. And that's what I'm using in my flow definition to resize the image to the correct size before sending back the information. So now you can see all of the executions are super fast. It's below 1 second, so it's really fast. So that's really it. If we go in the overview, we can see the amount of memory that is being used. We can see it's like just below 450 megs of memory. We have the execution count, the time it's taking, and so on. So you have a lot of metrics. If we go in functions and in the binary one here, we will see that we will see some execution here as well. Maybe it takes some time here for the metrics to be available. I'm I'm not sure. It's probably taking some time for the metrics to get there. I'm just going to refresh just in case, but yeah, it's probably taking some time for everything to be available here. Anyway, the function is running and doing what I want. And that's how you can very quickly deploy a function. So most of the time will be spent into designing the flow properly so that it's doing what you want. But otherwise, everything is quite straightforward. As I said before, you may want to go into the settings there to configure very specific things based on your requirements, but that's not really specific to NiFi. If you have specific networking requirements, because NiFi, the flow running in NiFi should access some specific endpoints, maybe you will need to set up some networking so that the code being executed in the function can access the resources. You may want to specify some certificates. As I said, you may want to add some authentication on the endpoints exposed by the function. All of those things are documented, and you can do based on your requirements, all of the things you want. So that's it. I will stop here. Thanks for watching. As usual, feel free to ask questions in the comments if something is not clear.